Before we get started, I want to thank you very much for listening. This isn't our jobs, and sometimes it isn't even our talent, but you keep coming back, so who's the fool now? But thank you. Please subscribe to the show. Subscriptions drive searches, and that's how we get new listeners. And if you're feeling up to it and want to support the show one step further, check out our homepage at theallaboutnothing.com, where you can find a link to where you can become a patron. And with that out of the way, this week's episode is a conversation with a United States Air Force veteran with 4 deployments, as well as a host of the Feathers and Friends podcast and YouTube channel Parrot Gaming Productions, Jared. We discuss firearm safety as well as we dabble into our interpretation of what the Second Amendment is. So thank you very much for listening and enjoy.
Recorded live from the Maddie Johnson podcast studio at GOT Sound Studio in Columbia, South Carolina. This is the All About Nothing podcast. The views expressed on this program are the opinions of the host. Some content and subject matter may not be appropriate. Listener discretion is advised. Listeners are encouraged to follow the show at theallaboutnothing.com for links to social media and more. Listeners can call the show at 803-672-0533. Thank you for listening.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the All About Nothing podcast. I am Barrett Gruber, and this week I am joined by Jared. I guess you are the owner and operator, the Parrot Gaming Productions. Welcome to the show. Jared, explain to me Parrot Gaming Productions.
Sure. So Parrot Gaming Productions kind of started as a venture when COVID first hit. I was like, I need something to do. I started it. It went off, and then I realized Parrot Gaming Productions was just like a massive mouthful, so I kept it as my YouTube channel. And now my podcast is just Feather and Friends. So yeah. Parrot Gaming Productions is my YouTube, Feather and Friends is my podcast.
Okay. But yeah. Parrot Gaming Productions, and everything I keep seeing on your YouTube channel is Insurgency Sandstorm.
It's a game that I really love to play. I'm ex-military, which is kind of, I think, why I'm on your podcast right now. Yeah. But it's a military simulator that I've kind of arcadified, where like I throw elements like you would see in Call of Duty and stuff like that.
I see.
I try to make the game a little bit more fun for people to watch. It's been a thing I've been on a massive kick on, and so it's been my latest craze that I've been throwing up.
Well, I have enjoyed watching the videos that you've put up because I've gone through and watched several of them. And
thank you.
First-person shooters are fun to watch and play. Call of Duty is extremely popular, and I know Halo is one that the Infinite War or Infinite is one that I just recently downloaded and are attempting to try and play. I am no good at first-person shooters. I'm no good at most video games, if I'm being completely honest with you. Zach and Trent, if they were here, they'd tell you exactly that. We play baseball sometimes on Friday nights. It works, but I'm not very good, especially when my skill level comes down. Yeah. So, Jared, you were, as you mentioned, former military. You were in the Air Force for 6 years, deployed for 4 years, correct?
Yeah. Well, basically 5 out of my 6 years I was deployed. Yeah.
Okay, and that was a temporary duty assignment. You mentioned it was as an air marshal before we started recording.
Yeah, I did a couple deployments where I was just like an air marshal, and then just typical normal base security. And then one of the deployments that I did was a temporary duty station where I basically chauffeured a bunch of F-16 and F-15 pilots around to play war games with a lot of our partners. And actually, the Russians showed up for some war games, and as a colonel once put it, yeah, he wiped the floor with them. So.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, and you were doing that out of the United States, or was this that you were actually deployed physically somewhere else in the world to do those type of, I guess war games?
Yeah, the war games were. We went to Jordan for like 2 months, and then we went to Saudi Arabia for like 2 or 3 months, where just basically the F-16s and F-15s took off. They played their war games in the sky. I sat around just basically a section of the military base wherever we were at, and just watched the planes to make sure nobody tried to jack them when they weren't taking off and doing what they do.
One of the things that I wanted to have you on to discuss was your experience around firearm safety and training and that sort of thing. But I also just want to mention your podcast, Feathers and Friends podcast, is available, of course, on Spotify, as well as I found it almost everywhere. So there's a lot of RSS feeds that you're having to pump into the different applications and whatnot. But I did find it everywhere. So if you're listening, and check it out, because I've enjoyed. I listened to the most recent episode where you had Mark on, and that was a very interesting conversation. I will admit that I know what it's like to have those really, really long episodes where you can't find the right spaces to try and cut out, but you're like, all right, fuck it, it's 2.5 hours. That's it.
Mark is because I'm his NFL co-host on the NFL show where we talk about just a bunch of NFL stuff, the Evil Mark show, and talking about the NFL, good. I can rein him in, I can keep him, but when he goes off on politics, which he says he hates talking about, it
No.
if you get through the whole episode, you're like, he's trying, but he can't rein him in. So
Yeah, I definitely got the impression, despite the fact that he says he doesn't like it, there is an aspect to it that he thoroughly enjoys.
Yeah.
What was, when in the military, in the Air Force, what was your experience as far as being in firearm safety and training? I mean, I recognize the basic training that there's gun safety involved and that sort of thing, but just from your own personal aspect, what was it that you experienced?
It was basically kind of on par with what I had been trained with. I mean, my dad, one of the very first times he took me out shooting with a gun, he basically grabbed a chunk of wood, said, "All right, I'm going to show you firearm safety." I was like, "Okay." And he shot the piece of wood right in front of us. See that tiny hole? And I was like, "Yeah." He flipped it over and he showed the back of it. He's like,
Yeah.
"This is why you need to have muzzle awareness to where you're shooting." And he was basically, I love his golden rule: don't hit anyone or anything with a car. It kind of, the same thing with a gun. If
Sure.
you're pointing your barrel somewhere, make sure that you're not pointing at anybody, and make sure to don't hurt anyone and anything that you don't intend to hurt. So
yeah, I think one of the things that I remember when because I got my concealed weapons permit probably 15 years ago, and one of the things that the trainer said, he was a former police officer, and I think he was acting as the current comptroller for the state of South Carolina.
nice.
And a bit of an upgrade with a bigger desk. But he one of the things he said was, it's not about what you're shooting, but it's what you're shooting through. And it was to make sure that we understood that, the bullet hits, as long as the bullet hits the target, that isn't where it stops. The bullet travels through, and there are targets behind that target. So it was something that was he made it very aware. He told us over and over, just make sure, he hung when we did our actual 5, 10, 15 yards practices before certification. He said, one of the things we had to do was check our targets, but also check what was behind our targets, because we were in the woods, and there was always the potential that there could be someone a distance away that could wind up being impacted by that. So it was safety was heavily involved. As one of the things that you hear an argument for when it comes to some of the gun safety and gun responsibility and gun laws that they keep mentioning, is one of the go-to arguments is, well, you can join the military at 17 and 18 years old and they hand you a rifle. But that's not necessarily the way that works, and you don't have a rifle the whole time. I from your perspective as former Air Force, what is common practice when it comes to firearms on base, or even being allowed to have firearms?
When you're stateside versus when you're deployed is two very, very different things. As the Air Force, we always, if we weren't on duty, we didn't have our weaponry. We never carried our weapons. The only time I ever carried my weapon completely throughout the entire mission was when I was attached to the Army. Actually, I was attached to the Army MP division, and like, they'll carry their weapons everywhere with them, always unloaded. They always do clearing barrel checks and stuff like that when they're deployed. But stateside, pretty much, you get to your job, you get your weapon, you clear it, you make sure everything's good to go, you check it, you function it, you've got a buddy there with you to make sure you're doing everything correctly. You never carried one in the chamber unless it was your pistol, but that was because I was a cop. It needed to be ready to go. But that was basically it. Is you followed a lot of safety guidelines, and the only thing that was rack stacked and ready to rock was your pistol, and you kept that in a very, very secure holster. Basically, it had a double lock to where if you didn't know what you were doing, it was almost near impossible for someone to pull your pistol out without them knowing how that holster operates. There we go. That's the right word. Yeah.
Sure.
You just basically never had your gun unless you were armed up doing what you do.
And again, that was usually in a situation where you are deployed. But if you were stateside, you don't have access to it unless it's specifically for a purpose, like training or certifications. I think that's one of the things.
Training, certification, and then just out and about doing my job. So
yeah. I think that's one of the things that I find the most disheartening is this comparison between having being a civilian and just owning as many guns as you want and being in the military. There's because a lot of people, they believe that the I would say on the conservative side they have this ideal, and you could potentially be one. We'll find out.
Hmm.
That there's this ideal that any barriers that are put in place to try and prevent someone from, or not necessarily prevent, but just make sure that they're the right person to be purchasing a gun. Um, they see those as infringements on their Second Amendment, and
Hmm.
I find in conversations that there is this idea that if they are being infringed, then that's the point at which they become hardened in their situation. Um,
Hmm.
in your experience, I imagine being former military and having experience in with firearm safety and training, um, that you probably have an opinion about where we are with gun safety and things like that. Um, as far as what you believe based on your experience, um, do you think we're doing it right? Do you think allowing not having some of the what someone would refer to as like having to get a license or having to do training before you can buy a firearm or having background checks or waiting periods, do you view those as infringements on the Second Amendment?
Not really. I mean, they're just making that you're not a, if I can say it here, not a fucking psycho.
Yeah.
Like that's just the honest to God case. I mean, if you actually look at how we had our weapons given to us in the military, like how we went through training, how we did everything, you're like, wow, they legitimately went through all these proper procedures and steps to make sure that the weapons were safe, the ammo was safe. We had ammo counts, we had all these crazy things that were done just as a normalcy with us. And it's just like common practice that I look and see what people do now. And you're like, you can implement this with no infringement upon yourself. I mean, take for instance all these NFL players that have recently been popped with unregistered firearms.
Hmm.
These are dudes who can literally pay for, own, operate, and maintain these very expensive licenses, and they still go out and buy unregistered firearms.
Oh,
Obviously, there's something that's messed up. That it's kind of
yeah,
ridiculous. I mean, have your guns. I mean, honestly, if I could, I'd have a wall of weaponry. I know a lot of people are like, do you really need that many guns? I want the SCAR, I want the AK, I want the M4, I want this, I want that, because they're nice. I don't need them all, but I want them.
yeah, yeah,
So I mean, if you can pass the tests and you can get everything, and we can keep track of it, great. But yeah, I don't think it's infringement. I just think people don't like extra steps with stuff. I mean,
yeah.
instant gratification is the biggest thing in today's society. If it's not instant, I don't want it.
Yeah, I think that's in line with my opinion. I don't mind the fact that it doesn't bother me so much that people own firearms. It doesn't bother me, although I will admit that I believe my First Amendment right gives me the ability to say that I think that I'm the only one that should be allowed to recognize the Second Amendment. Because my preference is that nobody besides me carries guns, but
Yeah,
that's never going to fly, and the day that I run for office, I figure somebody will pull that up and be like, he says you shouldn't have guns. Yeah, I did. I
yeah.
did. Some of you don't use them responsibly, or keep track of them. So can in a situation where, let's say, we have the ability to uh, push things through as far as laws and rules, um, I think one of the things that I would prefer is that we had, uh, specifically. I think one of the big things is a waiting period. Statistically, uh, a number of the shootings that we see, as far as mass shootings, we have seen them occur in a time frame that is sometimes the day after a purchase legally,
Hmm.
sometimes 3 or 4 days purchase legally. Um, I when I and I don't want to assume your age. I assume you're in your 30s,
Yep.
but growing up, that was one of those things that I always remembered hearing about, was that this state had a waiting period of 7 days, or this state had a waiting period of 5 days, or something like that. That there were waiting periods, but just searching through some of the states, there are no waiting periods if you have if you're registered and you have a concealed weapons permit. Then I could drive down the street and walk into our one of the largest gun stores in South Carolina, and within 25 minutes walk out because I just present them with a card that says, "Hey, I'm saying I've done the training 15 years ago."
Hmm.
Um, but so is, in your opinion, um, do you have any, I guess, any idea about or how you believe uh, what that sort of law would look like, as far as like what you believe would be a necessary in a waiting period?
This is going to be a little controversial coming from my background, but I think we should go the way of Australia and Britain. Just get rid of them. I mean, honestly, it's causing enough of a problem to where a lot of people either love it, a lot of people hate it, nobody knows what to do. Just get rid of them. Just get rid of it. Obviously, we can't do anything that works. We can't figure out what we need to do. Just get rid of it. And then you have those people that get the specialty licenses and have to go through the motions to become the firearm owners and do that stuff. And I think going through that stuff would help us, where you just go, okay, nobody gets it unless you have these specific licenses, and the licenses, obviously grandfather everybody in that's
Right.
got it and that's been doing the right thing, but make it a full-fledged thing. But then again, you are going to get those, and I love that Mark likes to point this out, those like 1 to 5 percenters, to where they'll go through the whole training, be completely sane, do everything they're supposed to do, show that they're good character. The moment they get their hands on that gun, that 30-round mag and a couple of them and the ammo, boop, they are no longer that individual and they are just off to the races. You will
Yeah.
get that. You will get that. But honestly, just go the route of Australia and Britain. Just make it so that it's like, if you're gonna have a gun, you need a legitimate reason why you're having this gun. Oh, I'm starting a museum. Okay, great. Oh, I'm starting a shooting range. Great, go for it.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just, at this point in time, I'm so sick and tired of the argument. I'm just like, forget it. Nobody
Do it.
has them. Nobody get,
Yeah.
you broke all our toys. We're done.
Yeah. How
So
many lines do we have to cross when it comes to gun violence before we do that? And I'll be honest, even though I am a gun owner, I have admitted on my program that I don't have a necessity for all of the firearms I have, and I have more than I can hold in my hands. I likely cannot strap them all on. Um, and it occurred to me, someone, a close friend, she said, well, how would you be the example of what to do? And I said, well, I guess one of the things that I have an issue with, and there are markets that if I go to a gun store and I sell my guns back to that store, those guns then at some point, after I assume some sort of verification on them, I assume those guns then go into, basically, they could potentially be sold again. And then
yeah,
what if they get sold to somebody that then, passes the background check, but then commits a crime with them? Well, I have added those firearms back into the system that have potentially been used. So, you know, they cost too much for me to go and, take a sledgehammer to them. It's, I know that in the UK and in Australia, I believe that there was it a gun buyback program that eventually got most of the guns back, or individuals' firearms back off of private ownership.
I think I think what ended up happening was they had those buyback programs, um, to a certain extent. I just remember because I watch a lot of those documentaries the on like the massacres and stuff that happened in there, and all I remember is that there was just like this one big shooting that I think happened out in like an island or somewhere, where they were just like, "All right, we're done. Everybody's got to turn their guns in. We'll compensate you with something." I didn't
Yeah,
really pay attention to how they did it, but I know that they had those massacres to where they were just like, look, this is a problem. This is obviously a problem we have. We need to stop. So
yeah. And that was a very conservative government in Australia. It was one major mass shooting uh, that basically turned everything around. And I
yeah,
think that part of that is because uh, mass shootings in the United States become pretty normalized, and I hate to say that, but I don't, the number of mass shootings this year already is like at 300 and something. And I understand people are going to argue back and forth as to whether or not a mass shooting consists of 4 victims or 2 victims or whatever it is the FBI decides. But it is, and regardless of who it is that's involved in it, there is guns are being used for violence, and that violence is something that I absolutely believe needs to be curtailed. So I agree. I think that ultimately, if there is some sort of incentive, I would like to think that, you know, I would hope that at some point that we would have some sort of a system that would say, okay, we're done with guns. This is your opportunity to for us to buy back, as a government, to buy back those guns. I think in I think the city of Miami recently, maybe a couple months ago, uh, I read that they were buying guns, that specifically those guns were being then shipped to the Ukraine to assist with the Ukrainian soldiers so that they had more firearms available to them. I don't
That's
know
dope.
the Yeah, I don't know the numbers on that. So I'm not exactly certain how many of them actually went, but I'll be honest, if that had been available here in Columbia or in South Carolina, I think I probably would have been in favor of that and had done that. Um, but yeah, I think that's I have friends, well, I have acquaintances. Um, I have to call them acquaintances after 2016. That I would joke that, you know, if there was ever a zombie apocalypse, that's whose house I was going to, because I know that they're basically an armory somewhere. The
Yeah.
ATF has a list and they're on it.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but those are the people that I know will fight the hardest to keep every single thing they have. He had one gun safe specifically for ammunition, and another gun safe for all the guns. And these gun safes were, uh, people that know the studio from previous YouTube videos, it's not small. You could probably fit 6 or 7. I mean, it's not huge, but you could probably fit 6 or 7 of those giant gun safes. And he's had 2 of them specifically for either ammunition or guns.
I mean, that's
And
pretty safe though. You know, to separate your guns and your ammunition, especially if they're
sure.
unloaded. Like, because okay, do you have the code to get the gun? Yeah. Do you have the code to get the ammo? Well, not really. Okay, good luck. You know. So
It's yeah. I look, and I will certainly say this: that individual is definitely one of the people that I would trust in an event. I mean, aside from some, you know, psychotic moment, I don't think that he'd ever take his firearms and use them on anyone. But I've known other individuals that have said things like, "Oh, the FBI can come to my door and I'll take out everybody who can." Ridiculous things, you know. Um,
yeah,
I think a lot of because we have a an article, an amendment in the Constitution specifically, that gives people or emboldens people to this idea that they need the firearms, that firearms are, you know, the guns are what they need. If you stay with me, I'd like to break down the Second Amendment based on
sure.
our opinions. So basically, the Second Amendment is one of the shortest in all of the Constitution. It says, a well regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So that's one of the pieces that people always go to, is the Second Amendment, and they, for some reason, they tend to leave out the first part, about it being a well regulated militia and necessary to the security of a free state. They always go to the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So just to break down the first portion of that, who is a well-regulated militia, in your opinion?
It's just like any military unit. You know, if you want to talk about well-regulated militia, look at any special forces unit around any special forces unit. They pretty much independently operate. You know, they're given a mission by the command, and command says you need to go make this happen, and then they go make it happen. You know, they stick to the rules of engagement. They have their specifically defined guidelines that they run with. And I mean, a lot of these well-regulated militias, you take a look at some of the militias that are out there, quote, air quotes, and they have, you know, these guidelines that they go by, and it's like, that's you're biased on certain subjects and you're biased on certain things. You
Sure.
it's kind of a lot like being a cop or being in the military. You have to have a set of guidelines that you can participate and live by, because otherwise you're just a dude with a gun who's got an idea in your head and you're going to run with it. A lot of
Right.
people might think that is a militia, but a militia was designed to protect something. And then otherwise, we're just a whole bunch of militias with each other, and we might as well be in Borderlands 2, where everybody tries to kill everybody because it's the, you know, yeah. There's a reference, a video game reference. So yeah,
Perfect. No, we're keeping people in.
Yeah.
This is a very inclusive podcast. That I think that falls in line with my opinion as far as when it comes to militias. I absolutely believe that in my head, based on the definition of a militia, you're talking about something that has structure. And when it's well regulated, you're talking about people that are that on top of that structure that are also part of a group that is being trained on a fairly regular, on a regular basis.
Hmm.
I would assume something like our National Guard would be considered uh, a branch of the military that is a well regulated militia. I could see where someone could potentially say that uh, maybe a SWAT team could be potentially recognized as a well regulated militia, um, but not
Yeah.
civilians. I have a hard time, yeah, because police are the civilian side of that. So I'm
Yeah.
going out on an extreme to try and include a police force, but not civilians. I don't recognize the guy that leads his children's ministry at his Pentecostal church as being a member of a militia because he goes to the shooting range once a month when they have a special in the newspaper, a coupon, and consider him, despite the fact that he is very adamant about his rights and swears that he's one of the best shooters he's ever seen. I don't recognize that and him as well as five of his friends as being a well regulated militia. So I have to tear apart that portion of it. The
Yeah.
next,
If you're a weekend warrior, I'm sorry, like unless you're doing a lot of stuff on your off time, I'm 100% with you on that, my man. You
yeah.
you can't go when there's a special. This is drill. This is muscle memory. I've been out of the military for 11 years. Well, yeah, it'll be 11 years this November. You give me a 249, I guarantee I could break it down a lot faster than those weekend warriors still after never having touched one for the last 15 years.
So that some of the weekend warriors that are listening, what is a 249?
The saw, the squad automatic
Oh,
weapon.
okay.
Basically, yeah, it's the really lightweight version. I don't really know how to describe it other than just like, yeah, just go Google M249 saw and you'll see
Okay.
what it is.
Okay. So is this one of the firearms that we would potentially see Rambo firing off the hip?
I'm pretty sure it was no. Rambo did the M60, the pig. That's what
Yeah,
he
the 60,
fired,
yeah.
which magically the 15 rounds lasted for like 100 or something like that. So, yeah, because if you watch the movie, he's got a belt of like 15 hanging down, and he's just chug lugging. You're like, "Come on,
Yeah.
big guy, run out of ammo. Let's go."
Yeah, yeah. That was something I wanted to discuss after we got done with the Second Amendment. Was I was hoping that I could ask you on the spot about your movie selection when it comes to
Okay,
accuracy, but we'll
sure,
do that.
sure.
So the second portion of that being necessary to the security of a free state. So they capitalize the word state in
Mhm.
that piece. Um, I don't know what it is that they are trying to emphasize by capitalizing the word state, but I have to assume that when the founders wrote that portion of the Second Amendment, that their belief was still, we fear this idea that Britain could potentially come in and try and overwhelm us. So, free state, I would like to assume, despite the fact that I know most of the founders were of an opinion that their states should be free for slavery, not
Mhm.
of slavery, but for slavery. Um, that I would like to assume that they're trying to lay the groundwork for how to fight off some tyrannical or some opposing military. Um, and at the time that it was written, of course, we were not quite yet the United States because we were basically independent states that were that just we didn't have a strong federal government as the centerpiece to this.
Yeah.
I think at the time we had a continental army that consisted of brigades of state militias, but it wasn't one federally funded military. Um,
I mean,
but
you
when it
watch
comes,
those.
yeah,
You watch those movies all the time. Where like, oh, this is the Continental whatever, or this is Virginia, or this is that. That's because that's where they came from. They were the Virginia militia. And I
right,
mean, you're right with your definition here because I actually Googled it because I wanted to get it right. In general, you should capitalize the first word, all nouns, all verbs. And when they're saying state, they're using the state as a noun, a person, place, or thing. And you were right. At that time, we were not the collective United States that we were. If you were a Virginian, you were Virginian. That was all you knew. You weren't part of the U.S. or the original 13 until we made it. But yeah, I think that's where they were going with, because I didn't think they'd. That's one of the things that I don't like about it is they wrote this back when there was just 13 or something of them, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there was only 13 of them. Dude, you didn't know that you're going to have 52 states, all of a sudden, all these people. You didn't know you're going to have all this craziness that's going on right now. And I'm going to leave that craziness open to interpretation for whoever's listening. But you're not going to have that. You don't have that just yet. And they just had the 13, and they knew Britain was an evil bad guy, and they had to fight him. So
yeah. That's I think that's one of the things that I wind up always going back to, is that even in the Civil War, we did not, the northern states, if you look at the military battles that occurred during the Civil War, you had it was the Virginia's 51st or the Georgia's 22nd, or
yeah,
they would under a General Lee, or under that sort of thing.
Sure.
No, you don't have to silence them. They're part of the show.
Okay. No, I know that he can sometimes get a little nuts where they see a cat, and I'll put it to you this way. Because I work from home. I do a call center job from home, and he will lose his mind collectively. I just had to turn on the AC because it's finally getting like really hot in here, and they're like, "Dad moved. I gotta tell him, don't move." Yeah. See. Thank you, bud. Thank you, sir.
How many feathered friends do you have?
I have two. I have a sun conure and a blue monk, or what is sometimes referred to as a Quaker parrot.
A Quaker parrot. Okay.
That's
I've only had experience with a cockatiel back when I was in high school, and that didn't go well, unfortunately. But regardless, we had a corner of our house that we're pretty certain was either haunted, or there were underground fumes, like what is it? Yeah, and that particular corner took out 2 hamsters and 2 cockatiels. So,
good God!
To my high school ex-girlfriend, I am still really sorry about the fact that those birds did pass away while you were at college. Okay, so, but yeah, so you were saying, so the definition of the capitalized word state was based on so we're assuming that they meant the individual states. Because if let's say Great Britain attacks and they pick let's say the coast of South Carolina, there is the South Carolina militia at that time that would be able to, I guess, defend itself, but likely would be overwhelmed. So the idea would be that the states would call on each other, I guess, to potentially subvert that particular attack. But I think when they wrote this, that the intention was that these well-regulated militias would, under the being well-regulated, would be able to defend themselves. I don't find anything in this that makes it seem as though we, as people in a citizen or citizens in a state, need to maintain our stance or our ability to fight back a tyrannical government of the United States. It doesn't make sense to me.
Like if you want chaos to reign supreme, sure, by all means, go ahead. Just be that idiot that shows up in full regale to a protest. Like it's always interesting when you see those hardcore guys get called out. And it's like, yeah, dude, you're the only one decked out in all this gear and looking like a goober, with all the high speed nonsense. Okay, I'll give it to you. Maybe some of you can use it. Maybe you've been tried and tested. You don't need it though to show up to a protest. Like, you're just angry. Hold your sign. Let the people know you're pissed off. And then once you start stepping above and beyond that line, it's tyrannical to you. Yes. Oh, yeah. But is it tyrannical to everybody else? Like everybody else is like, yeah, that's a dick move, bro, government. That's a dick move. But it's not like, let's go ahead and do a bunch of crazy nonsense.
Not to downplay what happened on January 6th, but I feel like if Cheesecake Factory and the Olive Garden all had their reservation systems in line, during COVID, that
Yeah.
potentially could have subverted a January 6th if everybody was like, okay, 6:00, I've got cheesecake reservation.
not gonna lie, if I could get that fatty food a lot faster into my face hole, I would probably be a little bit more chill. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, I think at the time, I think marijuana was legal in DC, so I don't know why that wouldn't have been available. Okay, so sorry. So
No, it's okay, man.
yeah. So the next one, the right of the people to keep and bear arms. Okay. I have to recognize that under this current judicial, the Supreme Court, the justices that we have, a six conservative majority over the liberals, I have to recognize that based on some of their current stances and the rulings that they've made, they are looking at the Constitution as being much more literal. Specifically, when it comes to Roe versus Wade, one of the arguments is that there is nothing in the Constitution under the 14th Amendment that specifically defines a woman's health or abortion being legal. It doesn't, because the Constitution doesn't actually say those words, abortion, that there is nothing there to support in the 14th Amendment that abortion should be federally recognized or federally protected under that amendment. All right, Nothingers, I want to cue you in about a friend of the pod, Blank Canvas Brand. If you own a business or restaurant and the time has come to build that unique brand, you have got to get a hold of Blank Canvas Brand. Blank Canvas Brand specializes in brand identity, including logos, business cards, flyers, and anything else to promote your business. And now, Blank Canvas Brand offers printing services to help with your clothing needs, including sports teams. I can tell you from our own experience, Blank Canvas Brand is responsible for our logo, as well as the Bowl of Duty bowling team logo, and we couldn't be happier with what's been produced. For more information, you can search Facebook for Blank Canvas, or you can email Blank Canvas at theallaboutnothing.com. That's BLNKCANVS at theallaboutnothing.com. You can find links in the Friends of the Pod section of our website. Visit theallaboutnothing.com. Hey everyone, I want to take a quick moment to mention one of our new sponsors, thepaintedmoment.com. That's thepaintedmoment.com. Check this out. Have you ever taken a photo with your phone or digital camera that would look amazing as a watercolor canvas painting? Well, now there's a website ready to take your photo and turn it into digital painted moments. This is how it works. Visit thepaintedmoment.com, follow the instructions, and your digital photo will be enhanced and returned to you with links on where you can have an image printed to canvas or whatever else you'd like to do with it. We've already got a couple of these enhanced photos hanging around the house, and trust me, you'll love what comes out. Thepaintedmoment.com. Create a painted moment in time from your digital photos. Thepaintedmoment.com. Seriously, check them out today. Thepaintedmoment.com. What is a vaccine? What is a virus? What is a mask? What's a Sasquatch? These are all valid questions, and to answer them in one breath, prevention, potentially deadly, potentially life-saving, and don't be stupid. Look, the coronavirus from 2019 has caused a global pandemic that continues to ravage our planet, leaving victims and survivors. But you can do your part. In the United States, as well as most countries around the world, the COVID-19 vaccine is available at little to no cost. Regardless of your politics, this virus has the potential to cause irreparable harm to you and vulnerable family members and friends. We have an opportunity through the efforts of medical science to balance the scales against this disease and its variants. And look, I don't understand how the vaccine works, even though I've heard it described countless times by countless experts. And even though none of that makes any sense to me, I do recognize that the money and effort spent on the vaccine has not been wasted. And it's not a global positioning transmitter being embedded in your arm. You're holding that in your hand, listening to this. So get the vaccine. Protect yourself. Protect your loved ones. Hell, protect the guy standing behind you waiting on his taco supreme and nacho fries. Let that be the reason his organs shut down. For more information, visit covid19.nih.gov for actual science information. We have to thank our sponsor, GOT Sound Studio, and its owner and operator, Dominique Stewart, better known as Neek the Geek. GOT Sound Studios offers a variety of recording experiences from music, voice, and instrumental recordings and production, as well as podcasts. GOT Sound Studio is located in Columbia, South Carolina, and operated by the most talented producer and engineer in the business. GOT Sound Studio is a Black-owned business. Bring your recording business needs here. You can find details on their Facebook page or by calling 803 243-2302 or emailing gotsounds@theallaboutnothing.com. That's gotsounds@theallaboutnothing.com. You can find links in the Friends of the Pod section of our website. Visit theallaboutnothing.com.
This is Judd Larkins, and I am the Democratic nominee for the 2nd Congressional District, and you are listening to the All About Nothing podcast.
But then I look back at this, and the words that are used are to keep and bear uppercase arms. And I can see that, 230 years ago, the word arms clearly was probably recognized as by the upper echelon of the public, the people writing this, that they would recognize the word arms as being a musket or a handheld musket, that sort of thing. Something that still takes, at best, probably 15 to 25 seconds to reload. And then the accuracy is not great. I'd like to think that in a scenario where we are going literally based off of what the words are in the Constitution, that they would look at this and say, okay, well, the word "be" or the word "bear" is not capitalized, so clear we didn't mean the animal. So everyone can't just walk around with, large furry mammal arms hanging from their
First
neck.
off, I will do what I want, sir. Whether or not there are pistols attached to that bear arm is regardless. I can bear them. But I was I like to do a little bit of Googling on the side here while you're talking, because
No, please.
like the fastest musket, like a flintlock rifle, is like 2 to 3 minutes. That is like the
2
quickest
to 3 minutes
for a flintlock. For just like a regular musket, it could get done in like 8 to 10 seconds. And this
That's
is like
impressive.
fastest.
And have you ever fired a musket?
There's a reason why I never touched one. No,
So that was going to be part of my point. So at the time that muskets were being used in open field battles, where you would literally have, say, the British or the French line up against the Spanish or the French or the British, you had two opposing military forces that would literally line up. There are no records to indicate that there was anyone that was so good of a shot with a musket that they hit their target 100% of the time. Police force, our military and police will fully admit that unless they are in a settled position, a prone position, that it is more likely that they will miss the specific target, not necessarily that they will miss the target as a whole, but they will miss their intended target, unless they are in a prone position, or that they are in a position where the gun cannot move on them. A musket being fired from the shoulder, out of the end of varying sized barrels. The idea that these muskets were actually firing lead balls that hit their target is absurd to me. I think you just lucked out. I think, and I'm not saying anything to the, snipers from 1776 or 1781, but I don't think that they were hitting. I think they hit, they fired it off in hopes that it was going to hit a target, hit one, and like, oh, that's what I intended.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it says here the average soldier was expected to release 3 volleys per minute. 4 was exceptional. And I mean, like, you look at movies like The Patriot with Mel Gibson, there's that one dude that's just, bro, sit in that tree, do what you do best. Like, you've got that guy that can hit his mark because he knows his rifle. And you're right. Like, this is back in the day when everything was handmade. You see him boiling down the little soldiers and puts it into a little ball, and like, dude, you just made a ball. Congratulations, you got 1 more ammos. Yeah, but how accurate is that? Every round that you fire is completely different, being shot out of a smooth bore. Like, no, you don't have rifling. This is even worse than the AK. This is worse than the AK.
There's nothing in me that believes that any one of those lead balls was made so perfect and spherical that it was, because I played baseball. I know that I can intend on throwing a ball and hit the target, but there are so many variables that go into play. And you mentioned the Patriot. The only thing I think that was accurate about the Patriot when it came to the brutal scenes that Mel Gibson was in was the hatchet. I think
Yes.
I think that he could. I think that the potential is that someone, while his opposition is trying to reload, I absolutely believe that he could jump from target to target and basically hack somebody up while they're trying to reload. I believe.
So soldiering back in those days, to have the balls to stand in front of your enemy as you hear the other guy go, aim, fire, and you're like, well, here we go, good luck. I'll see if I die, and then to get up and do it. Like, I could see why they would have some balls, but if I see a mad, crazed man with a hatchet as I'm trying to reload my musket, I think I just poop myself and fall down. just nope, sir, you win. Whatever you say, you're a legend, the ghost of whatever. I'll tell them whatever you want. Take it and leave.
That's one of the things I also wonder is who decides who gets to shoot first. So the British came all the way over from England. They had to, they were on boats. I think at that point it was taking about 2.5 months. Do they get the honor of shooting first because they're the visitors?
I'm shooting first. I'm getting off that boat, firing as I'm climbing down. Just squeezing off a round or two. I've been on the stupid ship for 2 months. I need an orange.
All right. The last part, of course, shall not be infringed, and of course, I think that's an interpretive. The federal government has not done anything, as far as I'm concerned. State governments haven't done anything, as far as I'm concerned, to infringe on anyone's rights to own a gun. And in my experience, I have never once had anyone say, anyone give me any sort of feedback that indicates that they have either. It is all this. A lot of what I hear is this ideology. Yeah, it's all this ideology of the Democrats are going to come and take your guns. The Democrats get in power, they're going to come and take your guns. Well, the Democrats have been technically in power in federal system now for almost 2 years, and I haven't seen any bills come across to say that guns are going to be taken away like they did in Australia or the UK. And I agree. I think one of the things that should be available is that if you own a firearm now, and our government did decide to say, hey, all right, that's it. If somehow they come up with a partisan decision that says, look, the time has come that, we can't continue to say that this is just a mental health issue, because, throwing it on mental health, I get it. Mental health is an issue. I fully recognize that this country has abandoned the idea of taking care of individuals that need healthcare, especially mental health care. Our veteran system is laden with individuals who are not either are not seeking treatment or are not able to find treatment that will benefit them as well. And that's not a knock on the Veteran Affairs program. That is simply recognizing that I got to be honest, that Veteran Affairs just doesn't have enough money being put into it. There's not enough resources being added to it. As a former veteran, I hope that if ever you need treatment, that TRICARE is a fantastic insurance company or an insurance administrator, but even they don't get enough federal funding.
There are flaws. I'll just say there are flaws. I have been a victim of some of those flaws, but I will put it to you this way: there are people in that system that I can't love and thank them enough, because they do the best that they can with what they got, and they try the hardest that they can. I cannot tell you how many times I've gone to them with a problem that's not a typical problem, and they're just like, we love you, we support you, here's how we can help you. Even if it's just, here's a phone number to call, tell them we sent you, and you'll get taken care of. And I have. And so, but yeah, I'm so sick and tired of money needs to be the answer to all the problems. So
Sure. And I get that as well. I definitely believe that the $800 billion that's allocated to our military and the Pentagon, we're not at war currently. I definitely do not see a necessity to be building up some programs when we could be building up our Veterans Affairs program. I mean, I ultimately, I think that not being at war should be able to allocate more money and resources to the veterans system. sorry, that was a tangent, but the
You're
infringement.
Yeah, you're fine,
Infringement.
man.
I do not understand this necessity to constantly feel like everything is an infringement. It's not just guns. I've had people that said that, they go to the movie theater and they can't bring in their own popcorn, or they can't bring, it's an infringement on my rights. I bought this and I should be able to bring it. And I don't want to do a Southern accent when I do that one, because I feel like I'm going to call out specific people. I don't want to do that.
I'll put it to you this way. I have literally there's a brilliant, if you're ever in the North, or you ever hear of a company called Noodles and Company. Basically, it's like mac and cheese heaven for us Wisconsinites.
Oh,
But like, it's great because like I've gone and I've bought like a Noodles and Company dish to go see a movie, and walked into my theater and they're like, Noodles and Company, nice. And I'm like, yeah, can I get a ticket for so and so? And they're like, okay, sure, big guy. And then you go, and they're like, whatever. Technically,
nice.
You're not supposed to bring anything in. It's like an unwritten rule. But if you just like show up and just go about it like you're supposed to have it, a lot of the movie theater people are teenagers. I swear to God, like I've talked to a couple of them, like, did you just get out of class? And they're like, yeah. Cool. Well, I'm gonna be a grown adult here and bring my own food in. They're like, okay. Yeah. They don't care. They don't care.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
My thing is that there's so many things that people look at as being an infringement, but they don't look at. I hear the argument. So I've said one of the things that I would be a proponent of is if we were to require gun owners to have insurance on those firearms, so that those firearms are now registered, serial numbers and all. That there has been some sort of a study that acknowledges the damage that they could potentially do, and then some sort of a principal system is put in place that requires that you make 6 month, 1 year monthly payments to basically it's a get out of jail card, or get out of financial responsibility in a situation where it's literally the same as owning a vehicle. And the thing
for sure.
that people keep coming back to is, well, driving isn't included in the Constitution, to which I say, you'd be pretty upset if somebody came and took away your license, though, I assume, right? You'd feel like that was an infringement.
Well, I mean, first off, I work from home, so I could kind of do without. but I know I'm playing devil's advocate here. But like, I mean, you hear about infringement. I just want to make a comment on something you said earlier. Like, you hear it all the time. They're infringing upon my rights, or the Dems this, or the Republicans this. Like, the Democrats have been in power, like, you're right, for 2 years. I find myself, I guess, leaning more towards what a lot of Democrats say, but I'm kind of one of those guys where it's like, I like that, I like that, I like that. Oh, the people can't see me. I'm choosing from different avenues here.
Right.
But, like, the Democrats have been in power for 2 years. They've been trying to do a lot of things, and the Republicans somehow can block them. And then all of a sudden, when the Republicans are in the power, the Democrats somehow block them. So who's really in power? Are they just like, they're infringing upon? No, look, if somebody was literally infringing upon your rights, that would be me putting duct tape over your mouth, Barrett, and saying, shut the fuck up during the movie. That's me infringing upon your rights. But if I'm like, hey, Barrett, could you please, I want to see this movie. I haven't seen it yet. That's not infringement. They're saying, hey, we would like you not to speak during this. You totally can, but as a civilized individual, you shut up during the movies, and that's what I feel like it is. It's like people just don't want to do things to make it easier on society. You're like, who was it? I think Texas literally just passed a law that you can now sue gun manufacturers.
No, California.
California.
I saw
okay.
Yeah, California. Yeah. Oh,
California.
Texas would not be in favor of that.
No, Texas. I don't know the governor's names. I try not to pay attention as much as possible because it just hurts my head.
Newsom and Abbott.
Okay, yeah, but no, that's okay. But like California, like I guarantee you, there are going to be a lot of firearms manufacturers, or they're just noping right out of there, right? They're noped out. They're done. And you want a Sig Sauer? Good luck. Go to Wyoming. Go to Mexico. Go somewhere else to buy it. Because they don't want that problem. You have insurance on a gun. You have the backing. It's just like health insurance and everything else. I think that it's a really damn good idea, Barrett. That's a damn good idea, my man.
I also think that one of the ideas, and I've discussed this with some of the candidates that I've had in here on the show recently. I do not understand why there is this constant pushback on this idea of a national private registry that is maintained just like the Social Security system, and it could be built on the exact same application that the Social Security system is built on. But basically, just every firearm in the country is registered. If you own five firearms, I I don't understand how that's an infringement. I understand how it could potentially be seen as a privacy thing, but I don't know your Social Security number. You don't know mine. You don't know aspects of the data that's stored in the common file off of my Social Security either. That's something that I don't know about you. There are ways to create some sort of a system that keeps that. And I think that if there were and this is the word that most Republicans that I know that they hate the word consequence. They don't like the idea that if something, let's say somebody breaks into your home, they steal your guns, they use a gun and kill somebody. That gun was registered to you. There's always this, well, what if somebody uses my gun? Well, I think that that's something that we need to then figure out as well. How did they get a hold of your gun? Okay, they broke in and stole it. Why wasn't the gun secure? Why wasn't the gun put in a place that made it virtually impossible for them to get? Most of the most of the people that get picked up for simple armed robbery, simple breaking and entering, they usually admit, we're going in there looking for guns.
Yeah,
They're not. It's not always jewelry. It's not always money. It's not. They can't come out with all of your china. They're not going to do it. They're in there specifically looking for guns, because guns are what they can then turn and sell, and that's where they make most of their money. It's admitted every single time.
The whole Social Security thing, it turns the brain.
Oh, sure. Hey, no, you're good.
So if you want to know just how much information people can get on you freely of what you do with your time and how you spend it, look, when I was doing my flyaway missions as the quote unquote air marshal, right, I bought a book because we could have potentially been down. I was shot at by 25 missiles when I was doing my flyaways on my 59 combat missions. Any one of those times I could have gone down and I could have been stuck out in the wild. I bought the Anarchist's Cookbook. Why did I buy it? I don't want to be in the middle of Iraq with no idea on how to do anything. So it was like a 1 pound book that had all I needed to know about how to make anything with just everyday items, right?
Sure.
You buy that book, you were immediately on an FBI's watch list. I ordered the book. 2 days later, it arrived somehow and when I was in Kuwait. And my commander comes up to me and goes, Jared, why do I have a notice from the FBI that you bought this book? I was like, well, sir, what mission are we doing? He's like, we're doing this. I was like, yeah, what happens if I go down somewhere? I want something that gives me a detailed description of what I do. He's like, that's smart, but you're stupid. And he walked away. Like that's just how fast you can have things happen. The timeline is probably all off, but there's a The Daily Show. Last week tonight with John Oliver on April 11th, 2022. This is on YouTube for everybody to watch, called Data Brokers. Watch that episode on how much information can be collected on you. You're on Facebook. I guarantee you, we already know you've got 30 guns. The FBI, the CIA, the ATF, they probably already know that you about 25 of your 30 weapons.
Right.
And that's just because of all that stuff. It's already there. Just give it to them freely. Give it to them freely and shut up.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I find the most disheartening is people's intelligence when it comes to the information that the government already knows about you. There's nothing that they don't know. I mean, there may be some things they don't know, but virtually they know everything. The government has the ability to track your phones. They can tap. I mean, with a warrant, they can tap into Verizon or AT&T or whatever, and basically just be able to watch you everywhere you go. Especially now with the phones coming with these eSIMs, like you don't even have a SIM that like theatrically you can take out and smash and throw on the ground. That almost doesn't exist anymore. In my head, no. I picture people doing that and go, well, that was the SD card. Now you're dumb. But yeah, I guess I'm constantly in awe of what it is that people think that they're getting away with. And I have said many times that I absolutely believe that if somebody wants to know something about me, I'm perfectly willing to give them an answer. But if they are going to go through the trouble of finding that information, have at it. And congratulations, now it's yours. I'm
right there with you. Right there with, like, just ask me. I guarantee the government, even the local police department here, they know all about me. They know about everything that we're doing. It's just that we're not big enough fish to fry because they've got other stuff that they got to deal with. I mean,
Yeah.
take a look at like somewhere like Madison, Wisconsin, right? I'm not too far from there. Dude, and then Chicago, there's like 3 shootings a day. Like they have bigger fish to fry than my silly piracy, like like there's just bigger fish to fry out there. And it just, to me, they're like, when he becomes a problem, we'll take care of him,
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I completely agree. How do we convince Second Amendment champions that licensing or insurance, background checks, waiting periods, that these are all intelligent ways of potentially subverting mass casualties? Do you have any ideas? Because I feel like me shaming them is not working.
You ever heard of the backfire effect?
I haven't.
Okay, so this was taught to be by a much smarter individual than myself. The backfire effect essentially is the more hardened someone is in their stance, and the more that you present them with facts, the harder their stance gets. So if I'm like, Barrett, the sky is green, and you're like, no, look outside, Jared, it's blue. I'm like, no, it's green. The government is blinding your eyes with the chloroform, and it just like the more facts that you present somebody who is that emboldened or that hardened, it's going to harden their stance even more so. You're not going to. It's kind of like with how you see some of the memes on Facebook that talk about how you're not good enough. Like our father's father would be like, you're not good enough, and it would translate. And then all of a sudden, like, now we're the generation we're loving and cherishing. It's like, oh no, Timmy, it's okay. Just be more careful where you spilled the slushy. We'll clean it up. I'll show you how to clean it up. Let's make it better. Just be more cognitive, instead of what we had where our parents would be like, why would you be so stupid to spill the slushy?
Right.
Like, you got to be you got to ingrain it into the new generation to breed those kind of individuals that are more open to hearing things, that are more open to listening to things. I can't tell you how many times I've listened to something and it's changed my mind about something. I had no idea about Mormons. I kind of had that little thought in my head, right? I was stationed with a Mormon for 36 hours, I think it was, one time, because I was stationed with him 3 days in the learn. I learned all about his religion, all about what he knows, everything that he knows. Very interesting people. Yeah, they got their quirks. So do I. But It's just, you got to breed it into the people that, I feel like I'm using that word breed a little too weird, but you've got to,
in relation to Mormons.
In relation to you've got to instill in the people that it's like, just do the right thing. I know you don't like it. I know it's not fun, but it's just like our broccoli. I don't like eating vegetables, but damn it, I know I'm going to die a lot faster if I don't.
Yeah. If you're trading the broccoli for tater tots or something like that. Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. I think that is so. So I think what I'm getting from that is we just have to hope that the generation that is unwilling to work with us, that they continue to die off.
Please, at a very much faster rate. Yeah. And it's that backfire effect. You can't, I mean, you listen to that Mark episode. I've tried. Yeah. That man thinks I'm a total degenerate, but yet I'm still the co-host on his show for the NFL. So I don't know.
Yeah. And that's something. So I had a gentleman on, Trevor Lane, from the Man Tool podcast several weeks ago. And I had to put a disclaimer at the beginning, because a lot of people that listen to this program are probably at least more left leaning than Trevor. And there were things that he said in that episode that triggered some of them. And they commented and they said, and I said, but see, here's the important part. I did as best I could to cut out any of the negative things that were said, any of the things that were clearly that came from a place of I don't know what to describe it as, but just they didn't come from a good-hearted place. And I said, so I did as best I could to make sure that wasn't in there. But I have to acknowledge that he grew up in a different place, in a different environment than I grew up in the environment that I grew up in. And I cannot nullify his opinion based purely on the fact that I disagree, which is why then conversations have to happen. You talking with Mark is absolutely necessary, in hopes that something you say could not Mark necessarily, because he seems pretty attached.
He's in the trenches, my friend. He's in the trenches.
That's okay. But what I have to hope is that something that he experiences, or that is said to him, or that he sees or reads, will just be that little trigger that says, holy crap, this is, this probably isn't all that necessary. And the worst part is, And I don't ever want it to come down to this, because I don't want anyone that I know to lose a family member or a friend to gun violence. But sometimes I think that is almost the only ultimate trigger that gets them into a process or a thought process that puts them in line with the idea that maybe this isn't all necessary. I had plenty of individuals who were avidly against wearing masks, avidly against getting a vaccine, and then they had their they saw family members that passed away because of COVID, and before that, they just believed it was all a hoax, that it was designed to make Donald Trump look bad, until their family members passed away from it, and it was like it triggered them. Now they are, I don't know where they are politically, but I at least recognize that they started wearing masks. They started making sure that they were taking care of themselves. They got into better health. So that was what it took in order to push them over the line. I feel like with gun violence, and I wish everybody would go out and get trained and be trained by the same guy that your father, who showed you the results of what happens on the opposite side of where the bullet goes in, or telling somebody, the bullet goes through the target. That's not where it stops. The bullet goes through the target and hits many, many more targets potentially down the line. That could be a person. That could be a child. Somebody that doesn't even know that it's happening. We have drive-by shootings all the time where individuals get killed because they just happen to be in the wrong place. And I don't know. I just can't look at those as being the cost of freedom. It just doesn't make sense.
See, there he goes. Sorry.
No. Look, it's a part of your show.
I know it's a part of the show, but sometimes it's like, all right, fellas. All right. I get it. You're upsetting spaghetti about something. That'll fix it in a minute. It's okay. Yeah, because I've got Rick and Morty on in the background for them. And sometimes they like to be near me and they like to see me. And they're just like, okay, Dad. Sure. Here we are. So yeah.
Are they covered currently, or are they? No. Are they? So they're watching. Rick and Morty, one of their favorites.
Yeah, I think it's one of their favorites because they like Rick and Morty, Unsolved Mysteries, and then Forensic Files is something that they like too. They usually stay real quiet when they watch those. Yeah,
that's pretty cool. All right. Well, Jared, is there anything else you want to say? Because I know you've got several podcasts. I want to make sure that we get those mentioned. Feathers and Friends. You put that out. That's a weekly show?
Yep, Feathers and Friends is a weekly show. Basically, it's random Redditness. If you like Bill Burr, the comedian, you're gonna like the podcast. Oh, yeah. I can go on rants and raves. I can talk about some weird stuff. Every so often, I have on some guests. I just had a gal on who I did a weight loss episode. So that's coming out next weekend. Cool. This weekend is with the CFL guy for Eric, where he does the college football stuff with Mark. But I'm also on the Evil Mark show. Okay. And that's basically NFL. I just do NFL every Friday for that. And if you hop on over to Parrot Gaming Productions, my YouTube channel, every Thursday night I go live to live stream the show. So you can actually watch us live record what we put out on Friday. It's the secret NFL show that like very few people watch. But yeah, so I'm on Feathers and Friends, the Evil Mark show. And every once in a while, if you like music, file under entertainment.
File under entertainment.
Yep, I do the producer because I've got the whole setup for it. And my buddy that does that podcast he was in a position where he needed a producer. He needed somebody that could help record it. I was like, sure, I can totally do that. And every once in a while, his guests like try to make me chime in as I'm sitting there. So every once in a while, you can hear me on there too.
Okay, that's terrific. I'm going to make sure that all those. Look, I had to take and actually build a entertainment and media division. So I completely understand. I will make sure to link all of the show notes in the show notes. I'll make sure to link all of your podcasts and gaming and in YouTube, so that people can go out there and check that out. I think we've said a lot.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you having me on. I'm sad that we didn't get to talk about how realistic some of the movies are, but it's whatever.
Oh, that's right.
You know?
No. Yeah. We're gonna take a couple minutes. Give me your top. Can you give me a top 5 of the movies that you think are the most accurate the most accurate when it comes to how they act as far as military or gun safety, just the process, the procedures.
Just the process. Yeah. So the most John Wick, like the very first John Wick. Oh,
okay.
That is mind blowing how they're accurate with the shots, how there's all these tiny little details that are in there. What was it? The Terminal List with Chris Pratt. That was pretty damn accurate with a lot of that stuff. Cause it looks pretty good. Some of the like B-list movies where they like actually enlist SEALs to come in and stuff like that. That was pretty good. Yeah. The 13th Hour with John Krasinski, I think is his name, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that were the guy from The Office that turned out to be a badass operator. That one was pretty good.
Yeah.
But those are some of the good ones.
Yeah, those are I can see that because one of the things that I recognize in movies, whether it's superhero movies or whatever, military, army, I recognize that somebody's firing a pistol and they definitely fired more than 7 shots. I'll give them 8 if they had one in the chamber, but I know how many all mine hold. And I can't imagine a scenario where I'm able to just, it's not Halo where I can just point down and it reloads. It's different. But yeah, I completely agree.
That's I was watching Black Widow, the Black Widow Marvel movie, and they use what is known as a CZ Scorpion. It's a compact submachine gun that has a ridiculous fire rate. Like you put a 50 round drum magazine on that, it's gone in a half second. It's not that fast, but it's very comparable. And in the movie, they're like blap 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 blap, and like my buddy is like, "So how'd you like the movie?" I was like, "Yeah, the CZ Scorpion one is accurate." He's like, "So let me get this straight. In a movie with gods, aliens, and all this other crazy stuff, you had an issue with the gun." I was like, "Yeah, I had an issue with the gun." And then it was funny too because that Rock movie where it's The Rock, Ryan Reynolds, and Gal Gadot, they're firing 2 MG42s and and then the oh god, I forget what it's called, but it's the 9mm submachine gun that they love.
Which scene was it? Was it the helicopter?
Not the helicopter, when they were driving the German cars out of the German thing. Yeah. And it's funny because, they get it right when they're just kind of doing the shooting scene, but when they're driving, you hear 3 distinct different sounds of guns when there's only 2 being fired. And I mean, like, I get why they did it because you don't want to have like conflicting stuff. But I'm like, that sounds kind of different than that. And I'm not even sure that's accurate for that third. And it's like, it's moments like that pull me out of things. And like, I was going to do a whole segment on my podcast about it. And I just like stopped midway through and I'm like, I'm just a freaking psycho. That's too deep, Jared. That's too deep. So
why am I spending this? Who's going to listen to this? That's there are rants and raves that I go. If you listen to episode 2 through like 15 of my show, it's just me ranting. It's me picking up on on something that Donald Trump said from a stand or a rally or something like that shortly after he was taking the office or the oath of office, and something he said just triggered me, and I got up there and talked for 30 minutes or an hour or whatever, and it's just like, why are people even listening to this? Like, totally understand.
The first episode that I think anybody should listen to, like if they want to go back into my library, the first episode where I had a gal from who did like some OnlyFans stuff, or like who showed like, because I've interviewed a few OnlyFans girls, but it's like that first interview where I kind of started having guests on my podcast. I feel like I really got good when I started talking like the OnlyFans girls for a little bit there. Anything else before that is just my dumb, like I think I'm like a season and a half of just myself ranting. I get it. We're finishing up. I love you too, Helios. Shut up. See, like this is why I only record usually when they're going to bed. Because they know I'm talking and they don't know who I'm talking to, and they're just like, "Come on, Dad, wrap it up."
Yeah. Well, no, I think that's great, and I truly believe that hopefully we will find a way out of this. I have an episode that I have to record this afternoon. It's going to be on the Moore versus Harper case, which is supposed to be coming up with the Supreme Court, that could ultimately take away our ability to vote for our representatives, president, senators, that sort of thing. So, but that's a future episode. So
I don't envy you having to do that.
It's what has also caused me to go ahead and maybe have conversations with some immigration lawyers, just in case.
Ooh. Nice.
Iceland may be one of the only countries in the planet that has 4 seasons at some point. So that seems like a nice place to live. We'll see. Well, Jared, thank you very much for being on the show. Like I said, check the show notes for all the links for everything that Jared is involved with, from Parrot Gaming Productions to Feathers and Friends podcast, the NFL podcast. As always, thank you, Neek the Geek, engineer and producer, owner and operator of GOT Sound Studio. Check out details on how you can utilize his talent and production expertise at gotsoundstudio.com. Thanks to Muff the Producer. You can follow him on Instagram at Muff the Producer. Thanks to Shiana Rivers for our intro and outro. Follow her podcast, Who You Callin' Holistic. As well, thanks to Trent Clark, aka DJ Lonzo, currently entertaining the main course in Columbia, South Carolina. Make sure to go by, have a good time. You can contact Trent for all your entertainment needs. Trent at theallaboutnothing.com and on Instagram at TheRealDJLonzo, or by phone 803-262-7982. If you enjoy the show, consider becoming a patron by visiting our website and clicking on the link at the top of the browser. That will take you over to our Patreon page. You can find details on how you become a supporter. You can check out our benefits there, or just consider a donation so that we can continue to bring you this nonsense. We enjoy doing it. We enjoy you enjoying it. As always, you can follow us on Facebook. Just search for All About Nothing US, on Twitter and Instagram at AAN_pod, or find links to all of our social media and available podcast platforms by visiting theallaboutnothing.com. If you'd like to be heard on the show, you may call and leave us a message, 803-672-0533. If the time between these episodes is too far apart, you can fill that time by checking out our partner podcasts. Zach and I host What the Pod Was That with Carrie Simmons, available on most of your podcast platforms. You can visit whatthepodwasthat.com for links and details. Carrie and Chrissy host Status Macabre on most of the podcast platforms as well. Find details at statusmacabre.com. As well, you can check out our own DJ Lonzo's Top 5, hosted by Trent Clark, available on most of your podcast listening platforms. Because you have the confidence to do a podcast about the NFL with Evil Mark.
Yeah.
What is your opinion on how well the Falcons will do this year?
Who are the NFL? Who are the Falcons?
Oh man.
No.
I'm
sorry. I'm kind of interested to see what happens now that they don't have Matt Ryan at the helm. I mean, I think it was an interesting move. I'm actually a little bit more. I'm a cheesehead. I'm down with the Packers. I'm interested to see how Devontae Adams and David Carr actually do for the Black and Steel. I'm very interested to see how that plays out. I don't know what's going to happen on with Rodgers and his crazy self, but yeah, I'm just kind of like, this year I'm taking it in as a, let's see how everybody does, and hopefully the Packers and the Bills do what they do best, because the Bills are like my secret NFL crush,
Oh, okay. So. No, I am with you on that. The Bills almost always come up as the game that I will watch if I can't watch the Falcons. So totally in with that. Jared, thank you very much for being on the program. I hope that we have conversations again here in the future, and I hope that you stay healthy and well. Thank you very much.
Oh, it's been my pleasure, Barrett. I'm looking forward to having you on my show, bud.
Thank you, sir.
This The All About Nothing podcast is recorded live from the Maddie Johnson podcast studio at GOT Sound Studio in Columbia, South Carolina. The All About Nothing podcast is produced and engineered by Neek the Geek, owner and operator of GOT Sound Studio. To support the show, please visit theallaboutnothing.com for links to social media, merchandise, and more. Become a patron of the show by following the Patreon link at the top of our page. The All About Nothing podcast is an entertainment product of Barrett Gruber. Special thanks to Zach King, Trent Clark, Muff the Producer, Neek the Geek, and you, our listeners. Please subscribe, rate, review, and share. If you're on YouTube, please hit the like button and the notification bell. Thank you for listening.